The father was a real jerk. He demanded I give him my house because his brother had cancer and he needed the money. I was like, no way. And he said, what? You don't care about people with cancer? And I said, yeah, I do. But that doesn't mean you can just take my house. In a state of shock, I asked him who else he knew that was in my place, and he said he didn't. He also said that he had to go back home that night, that he had a cell phone and wouldn't be alone for a minute. So he left to go back home, but he couldn't afford the trip to get there. He was exhausted. I was asked to cover the classes while he was gone, but there were so many people, teachers and students asking for time for support, that I could not have kept them all busy. So after a few days of that stress, I had to work as a lifeguard for a few hours a day to get my mind off of everything. But the bad news kept coming. My brother, Scott, had found out that the cancer was in his bones, that he had to have surgery to remove his entire kidney. They also found that it was in his stomach. All throughout his body it was slowly creeping up. After a few days of this information being released to me, I had finally just fallen into a deep depression. The stress of all that was happening was just overwhelming me. I felt lost and helpless. I didn't know how I could help him. I didn't know what to do. I hadn't seen him in so long. I had talked to him every day since I had graduated college, but I had not seen him at all. He had only called a few times, and that was only to ask how I was doing. He knew I had a job at the camp, so he asked if I could come up and be there for the surgery. I had to give a consent for that to happen. I had to hold back my tears when I told him I would do it, but I also thought about how I wouldn't be there for him for a few months. I would miss his sweet face, his handsome smile, how he was always there for me no matter what, how he was always the one to give me advice, hug me, hold me. The first thing I thought about when he was told he needed his entire kidney removed was how I would feel when he was no longer there, when he wasn't there to take care of me, to make sure I was safe, to make sure I was eating, to make sure I was learning. When he would need surgery again and I would still not be there to keep everyone in my life happy. I guess you could say that I put my job far into the right-hand side of the decision-making process that day. I just had to get up at 6 a.m. and go to work to deal with it. Everyone there knew that. I was always called while they were having a dirty diaper. My dad told me that he would fly up to be at my brother's side for his surgery. So that day, I cried my eyes out while saying goodbye to my dad at the airport. I felt real fear that he had not been there for me all these years when I needed him the most. But I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let fear control me. That Friday was the hardest day of my life. That is when Scott was told after the surgery his cancer was in his right cheek, jawbone and tongue, neck and brain, spine, left lung, ribs on his right side, ribs on his left side. That is when they chose to completely remove his kidney. He was told that his hair would grow back, his face would heal, and he would have to go through his whole doctor here to be sure he was cancer-free. That I would need to wait for him to go through all of his testing, physical therapy, and treatments up here in MN. That I had to love him, help him, and forgive him for everything he had put me through. He called me a liar. He constantly called me a liar when he got mad and threw me out of his life. And then when we did get back in touch, I would hear the evil in his voice and feel his anger towards me through many of the text messages he sent me. His response to me was that I am just too far away to pick up on his suicide attempts anymore, and that my support constantly baffled him. He could not handle it, as it was just too taxing on him. When I decided to share with that therapist about my thoughts about the holiday together, she said that was not going to happen, but did mention something that may. This is just not long enough, and I want him to admit cancer and for him to admit he wants to stay. I don't think my feelings are wrong to feel the way that they are. There are many therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, neurosurgeons, radiologists, and notaries that believe I am greedy. So maybe it's just their jobs to admit you need help, and I am willing to take that help. But I think what they fail to realize is that I stopped taking his apologies and what he said when we broke up. I took how all the world, including relatives, treated me during and after his suicide. The anger that I lived under all those years. The questioning of my sanity. I know what needs to happen, but I can't do anything about it. I am not sure if I am going to even start taking medication for my anxiety, my depression, and my PTSD. I feel like it's doing more harm to me, or doing more good for me. Honestly, some days, I feel so sick. My stomach turns when someone touches me, kisses my forehead, or says I love you. I feel like my emotions are always the guilty one. I do like cute ending to my nightly blogs. Beyond me, I have been having a serious case of artist's block and blogger's block. What a lovely name, if it were a person. My only love, Scott, is on another treatment plan to kill me. To add to this, I had a violent STR arrest. I am a woman that has had a wonderful life. I have gotten married and had 2 wonderful and amazing children. I have had great jobs and great relationships. But one day I was told at my job of 7 years that I was 2 BPs away from termination. For the next 4 years I lived life without my job. I had to make tough decisions. I decided to let my friend and family take care of everything for me. Family. We talked to corporate types about my rights and how I would understand if I lost my job, but still had a contract. I tried to keep active with everything. I took Jessie to all the sports and things like music, etc. But the strangest part of it was no one gave me any therapy. I tried to do research, asked private doctors, and realized my mind was the problem. I believe I have PTSD due to my traumatic past. When you think about it, it's so silly, but the board games that humans play seem normal. We never really do the right thing out of fear. The stress leading up to the day I lost my job was terrible. Against medical orders, I still spent the day with my job. I worked noon to 8. Please understand this. I'm a chef. Working any longer than that is torturous. I blame my inner health for this all. And a giant plus was that no one at work was aware of my issue. I came back to the house and my roommates were with me. As I unlocked our door, I saw Becky, my roommate, in the shadow. The shadow was a nickname she gave to the stairs from heck. We had a gate on them, but it was de facto broken. They held so many horrible memories. We lived near a hospital that allows animals. We were allowed to keep 12. We had 8 since I moved in. So the deed was done to the Siamese only pup we had. She was listed on the breeding, but she was too abused to be able to be approached. So no mamas this time. Bill and I had gone to the shelter last year and bought 2 2-month-olds. They were the obvious orange tabby and black ones. They have been wonderful. That night after being home, I broke down crying. And the shadow was close by. Bill made me sleep downstairs, and he knew I would not be sleeping well. We agreed that Jessie and I would take turns staying up all night with me. However, I found myself awake at 2. I laid there for 3 hours, not because I was sleepy enough to go to sleep, but because that is every other time I have to take an Ambien. So I started to clean up, laundry. All I could think about was I owed my roommate Becky this. I was a liably depressed, not need to be on drugs kind of person. I was acutely crazy, but I was being honest. She treated me no different, cause I knew it wasn't normal. As I sit here inpatient, I am grateful for all the support I have been given from my family and friends. I know there were people who helped me out giving me money, but I can never take that away. The thing that helps me the most. We carry it: be big, be rich, be this or that. But what I'll give you back is, I'll share my life with Dave, and we'll go on a great adventure. We are still the kids that ride our bikes together and shoot BB guns. Heck, I didn't even have a gun when we started dating. It's acts like paying for a meal just for a smile. It's knowing no matter what condition I'm in, especially with my inner illness, I'm not put down for a tragedy. My friends would have donated to the foundation, but they would have never written a check out. We are a normal family and we help out our neighbors. It's loving more and telling less. When I write, don't presume to know how I feel or how serious this situation is. I'm just trying to get out how I feel. Any doubt of this should be forgotten because I hate not being able to cope when it counts. In case you are wondering, I'm okay. It'll be 2 weeks Monday since the hospitalizations last week. It hasn't been all the low-zo. I read this today and couldn't help but share it. It touched something in me. I assume by the number of comments. It got you thinking too. I hope to see photos of every one of you taken in their element soon. Link me to viewers' pictures and live vicariously about Saturday nights or hangouts. My friend was so very sick. She had pain, excruciating pain. I tried everything to help her. I am not going to get into all the details, and it doesn't seem fair. Not all the details, mostly that I couldn't save her. There was surgery for a tumor that had grown on her ovary. My stepsister Susan had been sick for over a year, and we were all worried. She was in pain and had trouble walking or sitting down. The doctors told us it was an ovarian cyst, but they weren't sure how to treat it. Finally, after months of waiting and wondering, an ovary surgeon agreed to take Susan on as a patient. He suggested that he remove her entire ovary and then do an exploratory operation to see if there were any other problems inside her abdomen. We thought that sounded like a good idea. Anything would be better than the way she was feeling. So in June of 2000, Susan went into hospital for the operation. She came through okay, but then something went wrong with her kidneys. They started to fail and she needed dialysis every day for 2 weeks until they could start working again by themselves again. My entitled parent steals my debit card with no money on it. I was out with my friends when my mom called me and told me that she had my debit card in her purse. She also told me she didn't have any money on it. I thought nothing of it until she started spending money on random things like candy and gas. She didn't seem to care about the fact that we were going to be overdrawn so much that our bank account would be closed and we'd be charged fees for having no money in our account for so long. I tried talking to her about the situation, but she just ignored me and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." It got to the point where I had no other choice but to go into the bank myself and get a new card because they wouldn't believe me when I told them what happened. We are at Valley Fair, which stopped taking cash last year because of the pandemic. You can turn your cash into a debit card at one of the kiosks. AOC's mom and sister are with us, and she starts a drama saying that she can't get her money because her card is broke. I let her know there is an ATM, and we walk over to it, me with the stroller. If she has no cash, she better be able to use the ATM. And sure enough, she swipes her card. The machine asks for her PIN. She has no PIN, and the machine asks her to call someone to come over and help her. The machine doesn't take debit cards without a PIN. Mom says to me, "I don't know what my PIN number is." I reply, "So you're telling me you are so stupid you can't remember your PIN number?" She says, "Yes, it's stuck in my mind." I'm thinking, no, I don't want to go through this drama at the amusement park. This stupid bench can die in a fire. So I pull out my money and hand it to her, and I tell her to call the bank and get a PIN. She says she doesn't have time, but she'll do it at the hotel. I say, fine, and we go to the rides. I call my mom on the way, and I tell her what's going on. I tell her that even if they didn't have their PIN, they could have the bank come and unlock the PIN. Or the bank could unlock the PIN through a phone call. I knew this because I know a guy who worked for a bank for years. This way it would be done fast, and I wouldn't have to deal with her stupid problems. I give her my ATM number and bank name and tell her to call the bank and get a PIN. AOC's mom calls me and tells me that OC's sister finally got the PIN, so she started taking out money. I am hoping she will put the card away so she doesn't lose it. Nope. The girls start to drink, and one of them is holding the card, and they start to walk away. I tell them to give me the card. They say they're not done. I say I don't care. They have the PIN. They don't need the card. AOC's mom takes the card, and I go to the stroller. We have the cash, so it doesn't matter. No, we have the cash and the card. We already swiped the card. If someone takes the card, they can take the cash. Anyway, they're holding the card and drinking, and I tell them to give me the card. No one listens, and they keep walking. I walk to AOC and grab her by the arm and take her to the side and ask her what the heck is going on. She says, "I'm thirsty. I don't want to give you the dang card." I say, "I'm not going to let my card and your card walk off together. And not stupid." She says, "Well, you don't need to be snippy with my sister. She was doing it for me." I say, "So she didn't have to give me the dang card. She could have just told you the PIN and given you the card." I want to punch her in the throat because this is a verbal fight and she's not answering the questions. But she's deflecting. She's deflecting and being a dumb bench. I tell her that this is not her card, so she needs to give me the card. She says, "No." I say, "Fine, I'm taking the cash and the card and I'm walking." She says, "You can't do that." I say, "I'm doing it." She says, "You're not doing it." I'm thinking this bench is going to give me a fight, so I say to her, "Well, let's see if you can stop me. Go ahead and hit me." She says, "I'm not going to hit you." I say, "Just try, bench." I stand there with my fists up. She stares at me. I grab my debit card from her hand and grab my cash from her hand and throw it in my purse. I walk off.